Okay, so on this first one, adding these two polynomials, this looks very complicated, but I want you to not get overwhelmed by it. First of all, I want to get rid of those parentheses. Is there anything that I have to do to this problem before I can get rid of the parentheses? No, because I don't have anything in front of this one. All I have in front of this one is a plus sign, and I don't have anything immediately following it. So these parentheses in this particular case can just drop away. So now I'm looking for like terms, and they have to be pretty particular like terms. So is there anything that I can combine with 6xy squared? What am I looking for? I'm looking for something else with xy squared. So what can I combine it with? 9xy squared. You want to double check, just x, and then the y is squared. So what's 6 plus 9? So this is going to be 15xy squared. I'm going to cross those off so I know that I have used them. My next one, negative 5xy. Is there anything that I can combine with that? 2xy. I'm looking for something else that has just an xy, and exactly that. So negative 5xy plus 2xy, negative 3xy. Once I use it, cross it off. What do I have left? 7 and negative 6. And what is 7 plus negative 6? 1. So what do I put here? Plus 1. Is there anything else that I can combine? No, this is it. So this is my simplified combined polynomial. Now, subtracting, I apparently have to zoom out a little bit. What do I need to do on this one before I can drop away my parentheses? So I need to, because I have a minus here, I have to multiply everything in the second set by negative 1. Do I have to change anything with the first set? No, so I'm just going to rewrite those. So 5, to break my lid, 5x to the third minus 9x squared y plus 3xy squared minus 4. That's my first set of parentheses without parentheses. 3x to the third becomes what? Should I be writing this down? Negative 3x to the third, or minus 3x to the third. Negative 6x squared y becomes what? Plus 6x squared y. So I've done this, I've done that. What happens to my negative xy squared? It becomes a positive 2xy squared. And what happens to my plus 3? It becomes minus 3. So when I simplify, one of the things that I have to be very, very careful about are the problems that have an x squared, or the terms, I'm sorry, with an xy squared the same as an x squared y. So are these two the same thing? Are these two like terms? No, they are not. Because with this one, the x is squared, and there's just a y, and this one, the x is by itself, and a y is squared. They are not the same thing. So you have to look very, very carefully. So let's start from the front. Is there anything that I can combine with 5x to the third? Negative 3x to the third. So what is 5x to the third plus negative 3x to the third? 2x to the third. And I'm going to cross those off because I just used them. What can I combine with negative 9x squared y?
6x to squared y.
Because they both have x squared and they both have y. And just exactly that. Yeah. So negative 9 plus 6 is what? Negative 3. So negative 3 x squared y. Cross them off because I'm done with them. What can I combine with 3xy squared? 2xy squared. 3 plus 2 is? So 5xy squared. Cross them off. What do I have left? Negative 4 plus negative 3 is negative 7. Can I combine anything else? Nope, that is it. Questions on that? All right. The next one, multiplying in several variables. How many of you look at a problem like this and get a little overwhelmed? If all I'm doing is multiplying here because I don't see any pluses, no minuses in between terms, then really what this is 3 times x to the second times y times 4 times x to the third times y to the second. So because all I'm doing is multiplying, Micah, you getting all this down? Because all I'm doing is multiplying, I can do that in whatever order I want. And you don't have to rewrite this. I'm going to rewrite it so that it's more clear. But I can take my coefficients and put them out front. So I've got 3 times 4. Then I can put my x's together. Times x squared times x to the third times y squared. So I just ordered it so I've got all my x's together, all my y's together, all my coefficients together. Micah, sit up, please. Head off the table. So what is 3 times 4? 12. What is x squared times x to the third? It would be x to the fifth because this is x times x, x times x times x, so that's a total of 5 times that I'd be multiplying x by itself. So 12x to the fifth, and then how many y's? Y to the, 1, 2, 3, so y to the third. So this right here is my simplified answer. The next one is a bit more complicated than that. How come? There's subtraction and there's addition. What that means is I have to multiply this entire thing, because this is all multiplication right here, by here, here, and here. This is going to be a bit more lengthy problem. I'm going to give everybody a second to write that. We have to be pretty careful about it. So I'm going to write out the kind of long version. I would write this out for this one, and then they get a little better after this. They're not quite so much, not quite so daunting. But for this first one, when I multiply 3x squared y by 4x to the third y to the second. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. So I don't put any parentheses around the 4x to the third y to the second, because when I multiply these two things, all I'm doing all throughout them is multiplying. And then the second part, I'm going to take this whole thing, and I'm going to go ahead and do plus 3x squared y, so this whole thing, and I'm multiplying it by this whole thing. And I am going to put parentheses around that -6, so I know that it's a -6 and not a -6 that I'm multiplying by. So x squared y. And then, make sure you're writing this down, please, plus 3x squared y times 2. So, take a moment, get all of that written down. When I actually simplify this, within each of these terms, so this is very long but can be simplified. Within each of those, the first thing I'm going to do is multiply my coefficients. So what are my coefficients in this first term? Say it again? 3 and 4. My numbers, not my exponents, are my coefficients. So when I multiply 3 by 4, I get 12. And if I have x to the second and x to the third, what does that give me? X to the fifth. And that's the power rule that we learned a couple of classes ago. And then I have y, and this is really y to the first times y to the second. That gives me what? Y to the third. So if I double check this, I have my 3 times my 4, my y squared times my y to the third gave me x to the second times x to the third gave me x to the fifth. Y to the first times y to the second gave me y to the third. I'm going to bring down that plus sign. What two coefficients am I multiplying on this second term? Mm-hmm. 3 and negative 6. And what does that give me? Negative 18. So I got my 3 and my negative 6 covered. X squared times x squared is x to the fourth. And y times y, Jake, mom down, y to the second. I got everything covered from my second term. Do I need to do, oh yes, because this isn't y squared, this is y times 2. What can I do to simplify this one? What are my coefficients? The 3 and the 2. So 3 times 2, so I'm going to drop down my plus. 3 times 2, I've got 6. That takes care of that and that. And then, can I do anything with this? No, so I'm just going to bring it down. X squared y. So, I want to look at whether I can combine anything. Does anything else have an x to the fifth? No. So I can't combine that with anything. If I'm looking at these two, does anything else have an x to the fourth? And I'm just picking one thing to look at because they all have to be the same within the variables. So none of these can be combined. The only thing I might do is write minus 18x instead of plus a negative 18x, but it doesn't really matter after that. Okay, so that is when we're distributing a monomial by a polynomial. So we're multiplying those two. We are going to get into multiplying binomials and trinomials, but for the moment I'm going to give you a very short break, just 4 minutes this time.